Okay, the next segment of this is the real star of the show, the one and only Pat Broeker. Okay, now I said in the beginning, I can't remember. I've said it in a million videos. It has been widely reported that Pat and Annie Broeker were the ones who were supposed to take over Scientology when L. Ron Hubbard died. There was an issue that was published shortly after or immediately after L. Ron Hubbard's death, promoting Pat and Annie, just Pat and Annie, to the new rank called loyal officer. Now, loyal officer is sort of a buzzword in Scientology because loyal officer appears in the Xenu story in OT3, that it was some loyal officers who managed to like overthrow Xenu and lock him up in a prison or some shit like that. So a loyal officer, there's no status or title of loyal officer in the Sea Org. It doesn't exist. The highest rank in the Sea Org is captain. L. Ron Hubbard's rank was Commodore. And I think if I recall correctly, I don't want to misstate it. I don't remember whether L. Ron Hubbard promoted himself to admiral or anything like that. But I do know Pat and Annie Broeker were promoted to the rank of loyal officer, and the implication is they are in charge now. And that doesn't necessarily mean Pat and Annie were going to take over running all of Scientology. No single person was ever supposed to take over running Scientology. It could have just meant that Pat and Annie were going to be in charge of the reorganization and making sure the proper committees were put in place to run Scientology. That being said, once this issue was published and distributed far and wide, David Miscavige ordered all copies of them rounded up and destroyed and claimed that Pat had forged this document. Well, of course, that's what he claimed, right? But okay, I won't put the cart before the horse here. I will let you hear how David Miscavige himself introduces Pat Broeker. Now, this is why David Miscavige does not want Scientologists to see this video.
When LRH left in 1980 to do his researches, he took with him his two most trusted friends and companions. These two people were Pat Broeker and Annie Broeker. They lived and worked with him for the last 6 years during the time period of this research. And this evening, Pat Broeker is here to speak to you in regards to that. Please welcome him.
Okay, good. Just like this was the first time anyone was really hearing of David Miscavige, it was also the first time anyone was really hearing of Pat Broeker. The Scientology public at large did not really know who the people were at the tippy top of management, of CMO International, the Watchdog Committee. They sure as heck did not know who was off with L. Ron Hubbard. And the fact that David Miscavige is personally calling Pat and Annie Broeker L. Ron Hubbard's closest friends and confidants, that is why David Miscavige doesn't want any Scientologist to ever see this video. By the way, Pat Broeker is still alive. He's out there, guys. Someone ought to find him. He has never said a word about Scientology. I believe Tony Ortega was able to make contact with him a number of years ago. He basically said, lose my number, don't contact me, forget I exist. Annie Broeker unfortunately stayed in Scientology. She had tried to escape. Marty Rathbun intercepted her at an airport, brought her back to the international base, where she worked until she died as a low-level Sea Org member at the International Management Base in Riverside County, California. At the very, very end of her life, she was moved into some apartments across from the Celebrity Center, where she died of cancer. Her family was not even informed that she had passed. Her family didn't learn until at least 6 months later that she had, in fact, passed. So literally the two most important figures in L. Ron Hubbard's life for the last 6 years of his life were turned into non-persons as far as Scientology and Scientologists are concerned. Let's see what Pat Broeker has to say.
Can everyone hear me okay? If there's anyone who can't, then please move to where you can.
The freaking event's been going on for 20 minutes. There's already been 2 speakers. And this absolute genius is like, if you can't hear me, please get to where you can. Oh my God. Okay.
Okay. As David mentioned, it was my honor to serve under him these last 6 years.
Guys, when I was editing this video, I rewatched this point like 10 times. I do not know what is physically happening to his body here, but we're going to have to watch this. Here we go.
Okay. My honor. As David mentioned, it was my honor to serve under him. Okay. As David mentioned, it was my honor to serve under him these last 6 years, and before that, in the Sea Org in general. And there is just no greater honor. Those of you know in the Sea Org and his friends know exactly what I'm talking about.
Don't you think otherwise?
Specifically, because I was close to him these last 6 years, there's 4 very, very important subjects that I want to discuss with you, just very briefly.
Somebody get the man a glass of water for the love of Xenu.
Firstly, I want to talk to you a little bit more detail, as David mentioned, about his decision. And yes, it was absolutely his causative decision.
And don't you dare think otherwise.
To discard that body. Around January, late January 1982, he made a significant breakthrough on what is now new OTA, Truth Revealed. And it was at that time that he found the primary cause for amnesia on the whole track, as he mentioned in that Ron's journal, RJ39, I think it is.
Okay, I just have to say something here, and maybe this is more for the former Scientologists in the crowd. Please let me know your thoughts on this in the live chat or in the comments section. Now that I know what's actually on OT8, the whole idea of saying it cures amnesia on the whole track is laughable. But here's what I never truly understood. You're already expected to be able to recall your past lives in New Era Dianetics on up. You're already expected to not have amnesia on your whole track. How does it make sense to say that L. Ron Hubbard, who Scientologists already believe had full and total recall of his whole track, found out in his upper level OT research the real cause of amnesia on the whole track? That never made any sense to me. Especially makes even less sense to me now that I've actually tried to think about it a little bit. And I'd be curious to get any of your guys' thoughts on that.
That opened up to him significant stretches of track that were previously unavailable and or in some cases not even known about. Now I'm going to show you right now. I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the audience, but as this is being televised, I'm going to show it to the camera so that later, if you see a tape of this, you can then see what I'm displaying. I have here a worksheet from one of his sessions in later 1982.
Guys, real quick, a worksheet is a Scientology. I mean, it's a regular word, but in Scientology, all auditing is done with an e-meter and paper where you take notes, and the paper is called your worksheets. Now, take note of this. An auditing worksheet is divided down the middle with a line. It is a fool's cap sheet of paper, so it's not letter size, it's legal size paper, and every auditing worksheet has a line down the middle, and you write on the left side, and then you write on the right side. Top down on the left, top down on the right. Keep that in mind because it's going to become relevant. In other words, Pat Broeker's full of shit here, but I just wanted to give you one reason why.
This makes up now what is OT10 character.
So Pat is saying that he's about to show you a select portion of L. Ron Hubbard's auditing worksheets from an OT10 session.
Now, I've Xeroxed this worksheet, and in so doing, I took the liberty of blocking out a section above what I want to show you and a section below.
The chuckle here is that whatever's on OT10 is so powerful that if you were to see what was in L. Ron Hubbard's worksheets, you would basically be struck dead by a lightning bolt or something similar. Basically, he's doing it for your sake and your protection, and Scientologists do think that's kind of funny.
When you do OT10, you'll thank me, and you'll understand.
Now, I also want to say the fact that he just said that, when you do OT10, you'll thank me and you'll understand, implies that he has done OT10. Is there any other way to interpret those words? Because I can't think of any other. How would he know what's on OT9 and OT10 or who do you see what I'm saying? Do you guys take the way I take it? He is basically implying he's done OT10. Now, as he is standing on this stage and he is going to make claims that OT9 and 10 are done and ready to go, David Miscavige at this point doesn't even know that that's a lie, because David Miscavige wasn't with L. Ron Hubbard the last 6 years of L. Ron Hubbard's life. Pat and Annie were. Pat knows that what he's saying about OT9 and 10 is a lie. David Miscavige doesn't.
I hope that's clear there. This block that you can see consists of series of numbers, 3 numbers, comma, another.
Okay, that is an entire piece of foolscap paper with a date written on it. And the date, if we take segments of 3 digits, right? Digit, 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 comma, digit, 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 comma. I think he says it goes the date goes 15 commas across and 12 rows down. He is basically saying, oh my God, the track that L. Ron Hubbard was addressing, the incidents, the memories that he was addressing on OT10 were so old, like so closer to the, I guess what Thetans are supposed to have been around for 76 trillion years. Here's what's crazy. That number right there is a hell of a lot bigger than 76 trillion years. So he's sort of creating this mystery of like, it's like, so what would this even mean? What would this even mean? First of all, to say Thetans have been around for 76 trillion years is weird, because Thetans don't exist in time. So how can you say how much time they've existed for? Also, the time only exists in the physical universe, and Thetans exist independently of the physical universe. Don't think about it too deeply, guys. You might realize you're in a cult. But L. Ron Hubbard does say that we've been around for about 76 trillion years, and yet Pat is sitting here being like, oh, it's basically creating a mystery. Oh my God, it's so mysterious, it's so powerful that L. Ron Hubbard dated an incident to this thing. But he's showing you a number, just a big fat number written in the middle of an auditing worksheet. And he's saying that he blocked out what came before it and he blocked out what came after it. But that's not possible, because an auditing worksheet is split down the middle and this number is just written across the entire page. Something ain't adding up, Pat. And I don't know how Pat wouldn't know this. Like, at least put it in a way that would like be obvious to Scientologists.
Another 3 numbers, comma, and it's about, well, it's 12 down and it's 15 across. This there is a date. Yeah.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, they're about to give a several-minute standing ovation because the man on this stage showed them a date on a paper that he claimed had been written by LRH in an auditing session. Tell me again how Scientologists have convinced themselves they don't worship L. Ron Hubbard. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Okay, so let's see. All right, let's go past the standing ovation.
Well, it took him 2 years. He's done these last 6 years.
Okay.
To show you the significance. I wanted to show you the significance, the magnitude of the research he's done these last 6 years. This level took him 2 years.
Okay, there you go, guys. He very specifically said L. Ron Hubbard took 2 years to finish OT 10. This is probably the only place that something like that has ever been said. There is nothing I've ever written or heard in Scientology talking about L. Ron Hubbard, anything specific to do with L. Ron Hubbard and OT 9 and 10. This is yet another one of the reasons that David Miscavige does not want Scientologists to see this video.
Well, in that 2-year period, he did OT 9 orders of magnitude and OT 10 character. Around about summer 1984, he said at that time that he would not be able to, that he would soon come to a point, and he knew approximately where it was, but there were things intervening from where he was to where he knew he would find this phenomena that in which he would have to discard the body and do it completely free from encumbrances. This was in summer 1984. As we approached the end of the year, he was just about there, discovered something else, called it off, went on into finishing this, went back with rear view mirrors to then complete, finalize, and polish up what he had been doing since 1980, these advanced levels, and then proceeded on.
What? Okay, guys, there's something else I just want to point out here. So I said earlier that when you have David Miscavige and Pat Broeker and the other Scientology executives who we're going to see on stage, a couple of which are going to speak, only Pat Broeker is the one who is speaking and acting and behaving in a way completely uncharacteristic of a Sea Org executive. I personally believe that it is because he is actually the only one on that stage who knows that everything he's saying is a lie. I do believe that is the explanation.
Until he got to that point, and then on January 19th, he stated that this was it. And he then handled in session those things that were necessary so that he could completely sever all ties. All ties.
Okay, I just had another thought. If David Miscavige was going to be the person selected to take over running Scientology, don't you think that would have been announced at this event? That is also one of the reasons David Miscavige does not want any Scientologists to see this event. Pat just said that L. Ron Hubbard on January 19th decided he handled what he needed to handle. Now it was okay to drop the body. And then he put some affairs in order. Would we not believe that some of the affairs he was going to put in order was who's taking over running the show? And wouldn't that have been one of the most important things to announce at the event where you announce that L. Ron Hubbard has died? So David Miscavige might be the MC of this event, but he then introduced Pat, who, by the way, refers to Dave as Dave or David. I'm watching this event. I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, so Pat's the guy. Pat's the one talking about the OT levels. Pat's the one talking about L. Ron Hubbard. Pat's the one being introduced as L. Ron Hubbard's closest friend. And that is why, what prompted me to make this little statement is because, according to Pat, L. Ron Hubbard had like what, maybe a week or so between the time he allegedly decided he was going to die and the time that he actually died. Do you know one of the people he did not summon to come and see him before he died? David Miscavige. David Miscavige did not see or speak with L. Ron Hubbard, not even in the last 5 to 7 days before his death. But Pat did. All right, here we go.
Which, by the way, is research in itself because we now know what those ties are because he wrote it up. And then on January 24th, he laid down in his bed.
Okay, so that's 5 days later. I think he said on January 19th, LRH said, okay, good, I'm going to drop the body. And then, so he had 5 days to contact David Miscavige, say anything to David Miscavige, and L. Ron Hubbard did not do that.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.